Hi, everyone. Welcome to this presentation that I'm going to give this morning. Just a few housekeeping rules that I've just been told to pass on to you. They said that they recommend that everyone mutes their mics and videos off. There'll be a question and answer section at the end, and also that this seminar is being recorded. So just to ensure that everyone is okay with that. So basically, the talk is going to be about leveraging bioactive plants in smallholder goat production, which is part of a GCRF-funded projects that we're carrying out in Botswana, Malawi, and parts of South Africa. Going on to the next slide. So in terms of goats being the main component that we are focusing on in the project, we understand that the smallholder livelihoods in which the projects are part of, they are derived from small marginal lands where there is crop failure, particularly due to climate variability. Therefore, the smallholder farmers tend to rely on small stocks such as goats to buffer their livelihoods against the climate variability. About 41% of the global goat population is found in Africa, and in Botswana, particularly the country that I'm going to focus on in this presentation, there are about 1.34 million goats against a population of about 2 million people, which gives quite a high ownership there. And then goats account for about 15% of the rural household income. One of the major challenges has been disease as well as nutrition, which impacts on the productivity of the smallholder goats. There's high disease surge and morbidity. Reports, particularly by Mayberry in 2018, have indicated that there's about a 23% progeny mortality. Parasite infection, internal parasite infection, particularly by gastrointestinal nematodes, for example, Haemonchus contortus, have been noted to be economically important for smallholder goat production. This is exacerbated by the poor access as well as high cost of conventional antiemetics, and also the seasonality of the feed resource causes scarcity at certain points of the year. Therefore, the project is working, as I've indicated, in Botswana and Malawi. In Botswana, working in the central region, as well as parts of Ngamiland, which is the northwest. And in this presentation, I'm going to focus on the central region where we've got the data. We have trained over 1,500 farmers on the 5-point check system, which I'll explain later on, and we've reached over 30,000 goats. And then we've also trained over 200 animal health extension staff. In Malawi, we are working with 41 smallholder farmers in four districts as the core project participants, but we also have a collaboration with Self-Help Africa, where we are working in their farmer field schools, and we are reaching over 400,000 smallholder farmers through 4,970 farmer field schools, which are in the process of being set up. In Botswana, in Malawi, the intervention is focusing on the Lilongwe area as the current project area, and then also the rest of Malawi through the collaboration with Self-Help Africa. In terms of the data that I'm going to present today, it's mainly focused on central Botswana, particularly in the Palape and Serewe areas. And in terms of data collection, we did a baseline with about 787 smallholder farmers randomly sampled from 15 villages. And then from that, we've got about 515 goats that we've tracked over the past 2 years, which are divided into half, about 265 under the targeted selective treatment plant, which I'll explain, and then also 250 being under the targeted selective treatment drug option. So we're collecting data in terms of the fecal aid counts, the 5-point check system, which I'll explain later, weights, head dynamics, as well as the livelihood dynamics that go with goat production. We've just completed a mid-term survey where we have looked at about 600 smallholder farmers, which are in both the central region as well as in Ngamiland, and also in about 30 villages. So here you can see on the right some of the dots that is the project area, project data collection areas. The approach we have used sort of a two-pronged approach. On the left side of the blue, we have sort of used the knowledge specialists, which is the core project facilitators. That's Rothamsted and Queen's University here in the UK. And then also our African partners, that's Botswana University of Science and Technology, as well as Luana in Malawi, South of Africa, as well as FAO. So the approach has been to sort of train farmers on the 5-point check system, and then also train the extension and vet services. That is the blue side on the right, and then the extension and vet services providing technical backstopping, and then also collecting data from the farmers as part of policy evidence. As COVID happened, we had to shift our strategy, which moved us to the right side, which is indicated in red, where we have focused on training the extension and vet services, who in turn train the project farmers, and also some of the non-project farmers outside the project area. And then this trajectory has enabled us to have some feedback through the extension and vet services, and then also interaction with a few farmers, COVID regulations allowing, which has also allowed us to collect long-term data. We have used this long-term data to sort of lobby for a policy change in terms of movement from whole head treatment to targeted selective treatment, but also at the same time, we've used this long-term data to develop an early warning system where we use climatological data to warn farmers in terms of the worm burden that might occur, and also advise them to either look at treatment options that are there. In terms of explanation of the intervention, so targeted selective treatment is looking at, as a rule of thumb, we understand that whilst the whole head might have worm burden, only about 20% will have an economically significant burden. So we use targeted selective treatment by using a 5-point check system to select that 20% of goats that we will treat. And this 5-point check system, which is a decision-making tool that has been developed by Van Wyk and also applied by Walker in 2015 in Botswana to gain evidence of that, it sort of aids farmers in terms of selecting the goats that should be treated. Therefore, you find that by treating 20% of the goats instead of the whole head, you have a saving in terms of drug costs, but also at the same time, you have a pool of refugia or the untreated aliquot that provides a backstopping against development of drug resistance. Also, we have the second intervention where we are saying the goats that have been selected, we partially replace the conventional antiemetics with the bioactive plant components, particularly condensed tannins, which have been noted to disrupt the internal parasite life cycle stages. Therefore, the bioactive plants have a dual function where they provide nutrition to the goats, but also have a nutraceutical effect. In both Botswana and Malawi, we have piloted locally available plant species that have been known to contain high levels of condensed tannins. For example, locally known as the motopo tree, that's the Boschia albotrenga. We have also looked at the viscum species, terminella species, acacia species, and then also in In Malawi, we've also piloted some similar species as well, depending on availability locally. So explaining the 5-point check system, it consists of looking at a visual appraisal of the goat at 5 points. So the first point is the nasal discharge, where we are saying that if farmers look at the nose of the goats, where there is a nasal discharge, it indicates internal parasites, for example, the boat fly. The second aspect would be the body condition score, where we help farmers to assess the body condition score using the palms of their hand. As you can see in the picture there, they look at the back fat thickness as well as the muscle, and it gives an indication of the body condition score. And we have given them scorecards where they can grade the body condition on the basis of the appearance or the feeling on the spine of the back of the goats, as well as also the rib area, where we advise the farmers that a body condition score of 2 and below would mean that there's a probability that there are internal parasites. The third aspect would be the bottle jaw, which we call submandibular edema, and we advise farmers to look for that in the goats, and the presence of which indicates internal parasites. The fourth aspect would be the pharmacia, which has primarily been developed by Van Wyk, etc. in South Africa. We look at the ocular lens color, and which is an indication of the presence of anemia, primarily caused by internal parasites, for example, Haemococcus contortus. So the pharmacia card has got a scale of 1 to 5, where the ocular lens color indicates the level of anemia, where 5 would indicate a high level of anemia and 1 would indicate, sorry, that's the opposite. 1 would indicate a high level of anemia, and 5, which would show a hue, would indicate that there is less likelihood of internal parasites. Then you also look at the fifth aspect, which is the DEG score, which is the scouring. So we've also got a score on the level of scouring, where we then use that chart to indicate at which level the scouring is, and the presence of internal parasites, and the decision to either use drug treatments or bioactive plant component. So we have developed a methodology where we have given farmers charts which indicate if, for example, a pharmacia score of 2 is noted, as well as maybe a body condition score of 1.5, would encourage the farmer to use a drug treatment so that we can catalyze the control of the internal parasites. But as the body condition scores improves, for example, to 2, 2.5, and also the pharmacia is around 3, then the farmer can switch to plant treatment. If the goats indicate a 3, for example, in pharmacia, and also a 2 in body condition score, then the farmer can use bioactive plant components instead of employing conventional antiemetics. So in terms of understanding how goats impact on livelihood, we've sort of used the framework based on the sustainable livelihood framework, but also employing the resilience framework as well there. So we've looked at the direct relationship between goats and food security by looking at either indirectly by the sale of goats to provide resources to buy food, also in terms of the physical food security, in terms of them providing milk and meat, but also at the same time, the sale of goats to provision for other household requirements, hence acting as a credit buffer as well as an insurance buffer, where they can convert goats into income without the cost of either credit or insurance. We've also looked at the knowledge systems that come with the training of farmers in terms of provisioning them decision-making tools for goat health, and also learning in terms of goat health and general management, but also in terms of the knowledge system, imparting knowledge, particularly to women, is we've found that in Malawi and Botswana, goat ownership is rather inclined to women. Then also the combination of goats with off-farm income, and also the trade-offs in terms of rearing goats as opposed to other off-farm income sources. In terms of the results, we looked at goat ownership and gender dynamics. We found that about 56% of the households in Botswana own goats and utilize goats for different household purposes. And then about 59% of the goat owners are older and less educated women. About 67% of these have only achieved primary level. So we find that goats play a critical role in terms of provisioning for the livelihood of this gender sector. However, the results also indicated that the women have got limited economic autonomy and decision-making power in their household. If you look at the top right corner, in terms of the pie charts, they find that whilst there is almost a 50-50 control of production in terms of goats, in terms of marketing and income use, men control more of that. So the project also looking at improving productivity as well as the goat ownership patterns, so that we can have a positive impact in terms of that. We also found that the impact of goat ownership in terms of household use. A larger percentage of the household use goats for sale to provide income for the household. Almost 60% use it for milk, and then about 55% for meat. In terms of combining the two, we found that the financial, that is sales and savings, outweigh nutrition slightly, but they are also still within the high band, indicating that farmers keep goats for economic reasons, and also the ability of goats to provide an income and credit vulnerability buffer. We also found that goat ownership is linked to ownership of other livestock species within the household. So we concluded that goats increase the propensity to own other livestock and assets, but also at the same time, we also found that there was active trade where, for example, in Botswana, farmers were trading 4 goats in exchange for 1 cow. So goats provide a stepping stone to own larger livestock. In terms of food security, we analyzed the food security at household level by employing the FAO FIS protocol, and we looked at the number of meals as well as the diversity of the diet. We found that goat owners had a higher number of meals than non-goat owners, which has a positive impact in terms of the food security. In terms of the goat ownership patterns, we also found out that as the number of goats increased that are owned by a household, the worry about food decreased, and also the number of goats that were sold also increased, which also indicates that there was likelihood of farmers employing goats, marketing goats to utilize for food resources. In terms of supplementation and treatment, which is also the basis of the project, we found that those farmers who were supplementing had a higher propensity to sell, but about 30% of the smallholder farmers did not supplement at all. And then also mortality in those farmers who owned the lower number of goats, particularly below 10 goats, was as high as 20%, indicating that these poorly resourced farmers did not have capacity to treat their goats. If you look at the top right corner graph here, you find that as the number of goats increased, that means which sort of indicates that as resource endowment increased, the farmers who had more resources were able to treat their goats and also supplement their goats, and the mortality was lower as compared to poorly resourced farmers, which indicates that intervention in terms of provisioning low-cost supplementation as well as treatment would go a long way in terms of reducing mortality for the poorly resourced farmers. And then also supplementing was also linked to higher goat marketing and profitability, therefore provisioning a locally available resource for poorly resourced farmers would also increase their propensity to market and also the impact of goats in the household. The impact of targeted selective treatment bioactive plants on goat health, we analyzed the differences between those who were employing conventional antibiotics and those who were employing plants in terms of average daily gain. There was a significant difference. Those who were employing plants had a higher average weight gain as compared to those who were utilizing drugs. Also, if you look at the top right graph, you also find that those who were utilizing plants, there was a successive decrease in the number of livestock that number of goats that required treatment, but also a decrease in the need to use a combination of plants and drug towards utilization of plants only. On the bottom left, you also find that those who were using a combination of plants and drugs or plants only, the frequency of treatment, that means that after the initial treatment, goats that required a successive treatment in the goats was lower for those who were employing plants than for those who were using conventional drugs only. And we've concluded that this was primarily also due to the fact that those who were employing plants, there was nutrition that was provisioned, therefore also aiding in terms of disease resilience on the basis of nutrition. The bottom right corner graph indicates that as we collected data on successive visits, there was an improvement in terms of the Pharmacia score, that is the ocular lens color, with the movement towards a lower Pharmacia score, indicating that there was a decreased incidence of anemia and possibly internal parasites, for example, Haemonchus contortus. In terms of survivability, the 2-year data indicates that the survivability for goats that are on TST plant was significantly higher than those that were on TST drug. The number of animals at risk or requiring retreatment, as you can see in the table that is below the graph, was consistently lower for those who were utilizing bioactive plant components compared to the drug components. Also, in terms of looking at the household economic benefit, we looked at the cost of treatment for those who were using a combination of plants and drugs or plants only versus those who were using drugs. We found that there was a 70% difference in terms of costs. Therefore, those who were on TST plant had 70% less treatment costs compared to those who were utilizing conventional drugs. We also looked at the farmer learning processes. The project was also training farmers. We wanted to understand if the farmers were grasping the concept, if the farmers were able to implement the 5-point check system, but also looking at if there are any ways that the farmers have modified the 5-point check system to fit into their farming systems. A larger number of the farmers indicated that the 5-point check system was instrumental for them in terms of understanding when or how to control parasites, which also then reduced their drug costs, but also the concept in terms of goat production, as well as improvements in terms of goat marketing, as they had more goats to market in terms of more properly conditioned goats. We also heard from the farmers that the 5-point check system and targeted selective treatment, it helped them identify when parasite burden was high or low, which also helped them in their decision-making processes in terms of when to treat goats and when to look out more for internal parasites. In terms of adding value, which is on the bottom left corner, the farmers indicated that they gained knowledge in terms of understanding internal parasites as well as goat nutrition, and then also the other aspects of goat health, as the project also looked at the overall goat health for the smallholder farmers that we were working with. And also the farmers also indicated that they had a better appreciation in terms of understanding the condition, body condition of the goats, and also some noted that there was slight improvements in terms of flock size, although the project was sort of short term, so it's just the perception of the farmers. In terms of testing whether the farmers had grasped the concept, we tasked our African partners to do a 5-point check on goats and make a decision whether they were going to use plants and drugs, and then also allow the farmers to do the same, and then compare the scores to see if there were the differences. There was a very high correlation in terms of all the 5 aspects between the farmers and the researchers, indicating that the farmers had grasped the concept of the 5-point check system. In terms of conclusions, we've concluded that using targeted selective treatment, that is treating just an aliquot of the head as opposed to whole head treatment, as well as employing bioactive plant components as partial replacers for conventional antiemetics, it lowers the health costs for the resource-poor farmers, enabling those who have got smaller numbers of goats and lower resources to be able to treat their goats, as well as improve the overall health and body condition of the goats. Also, in terms of imparting knowledge, we understand from the project that the farmers feel that they were able to now use the 5-point check system to look at when there was high parasite burden periods, and then also enabling them to be able to adapt to the arid regions in which they operate by being able to provide locally available feed systems, as well as being able to utilize the locally available plants to treat their goats, as opposed to the high costing conventional antiemetics, as well as the challenge of it being unavailable. We also noted that there was a strong association between with the local economic and food security of the household and goats, which indicated that the intervention would have a positive impact on the livelihood by goats being an economic buffer as a low-cost insurance and credit livelihood buffer for the smaller livelihoods. In terms of adaptive capacity, we also conclude that goats are versatile in terms of being able to be converted to other assets, particularly income, as well as also gaining knowledge, and then also the clustering of goats in terms of being able to convert to larger livestock. For example, the trade of 4 goats to a cow, enabling them to move from what you would call a smaller stock to larger stock, and then also substituting some of the assets, and also the as I've indicated in some of the graphs, the ability to own other livestock production assets by converting goats through selling and buying those assets. Also, that goats have become more important in the context of COVID-19. A recent World Bank report indicated that in the 4 countries that they studied, about 80% of smallholder farmers lost off-farm income due to COVID-19, and they had to sort of rely more on the resources that they have in-house. So goats have played a critical role in that. So in terms also of the gender aspect, we have concluded that goats have got the potential to contribute to shifts in household econometrics as they are ordinarily owned and controlled by women. So improving goat productivity would improve the position of women in the household. I've come to the end of my small talk. I've indicated some of the people that we're working with, my colleagues that I'm working with on the left on the project, and these primarily belong to the organizations that I've indicated, and which we confer gratitude. We're working with Queen's University Belfast, then also Harper Adams University, and then also Self of Africa. Then in our African partners, we are working with Botswana International University of Science and Technology, and then also Lilongwe University of Agriculture and Natural Resources. And then we're also working with Jan van Wyk, who was instrumental in the production of the 5-point check system, who is based at University of Pretoria. I myself being from Rothamsted Research. I'd like to thank you for your time.